Mike Masato, CEO of Staff Driven Dental, returning for episode 50 of the Dental Road Warrior. I'm sorry I don't have more of a grandiose opening for this episode to celebrate 50 episodes. I started doing this back in, I think it was June of 2017. I didn't think it was going to go this long, or I had that much knowledge and information in my head, but apparently I do, and I hope to be around doing this for 50 more episodes. Unless I get off the road and my life changes significantly when I'm not going to be driving as much to do these as often. But I hope you again, I really appreciate all your support and everybody following this series. A lot of good information, as I said, a lot of good knowledge that I've been imparting over the years. And ironically, I just figured this out. I don't know why, looking back at my past episodes, that I wore this same shirt for episode 1. I don't know how that happened. It's just I didn't plan that today. It's just one of those crazy coincidences. So, but anyway, different angle on the camera, but this is definitely this shirt. So maybe it's time to retire this shirt. Well, I digress. So let me get into the topic for today, since I brought up knowledge and information. I like to quote Einstein here, smart guy, when he basically said the only source of knowledge is experience. What was he trying to say when he said this? Basically, when you teach this stuff, and I utilize these videos as teaching exercises to help people learn something from what I'm talking about, and I give the knowledge with the expectation that hopefully people will take this and they'll say, you know what, that resonated with me, and I'm going to go and apply it. Because information and knowledge that's not applied, it's worthless. We've all been through school, whether it's been grammar school, high school, grade school, high school, college, grad school, dental school, and how much useless information has been imparted to us that we have been given. And another quote by Einstein is, "Education is what remains after one has forgotten what is learned in school," and that's so true. I mean, whatever you retain and hold up there, that's your education, and that's what you really can use to your benefit, hopefully, every day of your life. And in dental consulting, I mean, there's so much information out there today. Everything's basically information overload in this day and age out there. And basically, you get bombarded with the internet or people like me talking about this kind of stuff. But the question is, what are you doing with it all? Because if you're not applying it, you're not using it in your life, it's just a waste. It's just data. It's just information. And many of us have reams of paper of information, all kinds of, I said, binders, books, DVDs, CDs, whatever, stored up here. And what are we doing with it? It'd be great if that stuff just implemented itself. If we just, jump off the shelf one day and just do it for us, or you could just, by osmosis, you'd absorb it all, and there's your education. But that's not how it works. Going back to what Einstein said, really the best source of knowledge is experience. What that means is you put this into your life, you apply it in your life, you live it, you be it, you do it, and guess what? Then it's valuable. It makes some effect in your life in a positive way. And it's interesting today, in bringing the subject up, before I went on doing this video, I was listening to a show on the radio, and it was actually Danny Meyer. They were interviewing on a leadership show about Danny Meyer. For those of you who don't know what Danny Meyer is a very famous entrepreneur, restaurant owner. Started the Union Square Pub or Union Square Cafe, I confuse it too, and Gramercy Pub, or Gramercy Tavern, and that whole restaurant group. He's at about 17 or 18 restaurants. He also is a founder of Shake Shack, and quite a successful guy. And, I had forgotten, listening to him speak, that a lot of his teachings, I've kind of learned about a long time ago, became an education, and now I teach the same kind of philosophy in many ways to my clients about how you serve your patients through your staff. And anybody who's sat at any of my seminars knows that I've always preached that staff is number one and patients come number two. And this might have even been a topic I shared on an earlier Dental Road Warrior episode, looking back. And basically what that means is that what he was talking about in all his restaurants is that in essence, in order to make the experience the most amazing thing, he makes his staff number one and first and foremost in all of his restaurant ventures. And that's why he's so successful today. It's kind of bucked the traditional mold over the years, when this philosophy of the customer always comes first, and them coming second behind the personnel. So this is something basically he taught, and I said this is a phenomenal concept that he lives this, and he's very successful doing it, and because it's a service industry, and I've taught this. I absorbed that somewhere in listening it somewhere as an education, as knowledge I can use and now impart to other people, and that's something that's not just, wow, that sounds like a great concept. Yeah, it's a great concept, but it's more than a concept. It's meant to be applied, because that knowledge, if it's just knowledge, it's not applied, it's worthless. And really, then ask yourself about it, how many people are really doing that? I mean, I've talked about it and coached people on that as an example for years, but how many of you really are running your practice that way when you create an environment when it's all about the staff and your team? Because you know what? Every dollar flows through them. And if they're happy and they love coming to work, it's an amazing experience. You know, your patients remember that, and they keep coming back in, and they want to spend money and go to your practice. And it was interesting in this radio show too. Not that I was going to get into this topic too much, but that he was talking about, the concept, why do people come into my restaurants? Is it because they're hungry? I mean, they really don't come into his restaurants because they're hungry. I mean, they are hungry. Hopefully, they want to get a meal, but that they could go anywhere and spend money. They don't have to spend that kind of money, and it's not cheap to eat in his restaurants. Most of them, and it's a lot of money. So at the end of the day, if you take away the tab, what's left? Other than in the expensive meal, it's the service experience. And that comes down to his people, and he knows about that. So the differentiation is not the food, it's the experience. We all go out to the restaurant to have the experience of fine dining. When we go out and kind of spend that money, we expect that service experience to match that. That's what we remember, more so than the food. And same thing with dentistry today. People can have many, many choices. He was talking about there's like 26,000 restaurant choices in Manhattan alone. 26,000. Think of how many dentists there are, for instance, where I am in the tri-state area, when there's over, like, I think 9,000 licensed dentists or some crazy number like that, like in a 100-mile radius of where I am. 9,000. Right? People have lots of choices today. That's why they shop. Right? They're not shopping because they're looking for the best dentist necessarily, the best dentistry. They really can't differentiate too much. What they can differentiate, as I said before, and I've talked about this many times, is the service experience that we create. So again, this is something we should embody. It's something I've talked about many times before. But how many of you are really doing that? How many have really said, I took this knowledge as an education, and now it's information that I have that I really live and breathe in my life, because it makes a massive difference. A lot of my training, I named my company Staff Driven Dental for a reason, because really it's all about your staff. I was a staff member at one time. I know how I wanted to be treated. I know I got into consulting because I had a boss many, many, many years ago that saw a diamond in the rough and invested in me. And he was a consulting junkie, and he spent a lot of money in me to become, good at what I do on his behalf. And then I took that and I said, as I matured and grew and expanded, and the entrepreneurial bug bit me, and I said, I really want to go out and do something more in my life. That's why I got into doing what I do today. This point, so I'm a work in progress. It's a constant experience of obtaining knowledge and information. But the big thing about what I take this information, I apply it. I don't profess to know everything. I don't, and I've said many times before, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts, and that's been my philosophy for quite some time. But I can tell you what I learn. I practice what I preach. And if I'm up there and I'm on stage or I'm talking on these videos, I teach this and I insist this of my clients, these concepts, and I demand them of my people that work with me as well too, because that's the kind of person I hope to be. I'm not perfect; it doesn't always work out that way, but you know what? I'll make it right, try my best, and that's what I always try to do when going forward in terms of the stuff that I learn, and to become a better person and a better leader and a better manager and a better executive in my own life. So the question to ask yourself is, the moral of the story here for episode 50, of all the information that's being imparted on these videos, or you're learning from anyone, how much of it are you really applying in your life? How much are you really saying, let me go back to the books and see. Let's do a little, and it's really interesting when you go back and I do reviews with my clients of all the curriculum, of the massive information that they learn, and see how much really is retained. And it's somewhere, usually the first year it's about 20%, 30%. And we still have a massive change just because of that. Can you only imagine if people retained and applied 100% of what they learned and actually really lived it and breathed it? And I tell you, all my superstar clients are the ones that basically absorb this stuff like a sponge, and they embody it and they live it, and they apply it and they use it every day of their life. And that's how you become a raging success story in dentistry or in life, by applying the education and knowledge that you learn. All right. So this is a philosophical episode of the Dental Road Warrior. I hope you enjoyed it and you'll share it with others and you keep watching. And again, thanks for supporting me and following me. And hope it's been helpful so far today in your life and practice.